Welcome you all to our panel talk, Why Blockchain Needs More Women. And first of all, I would like to thank you all for participating today. I'm Jennica, your moderator, and I will guide you through today's panel talk. And first of all, I would like to introduce our speakers. So first of all, we have Ella Cullen. She is Chief Marketing Officer at Minespider. And secondly, we have Dr. Alexandra Mikityuk. She is Head of Blockchain Technology and co-founder from T-Lab's Telekom Innovation Laboratories. Then we have Maria Minaricova. She is Head of Business Development at Fetch.ai. And lastly, we have Rebecca Lynn Johnson. She's a blockchain architect from Datarella. And I would say we start right off with the discussion. And my first question for the ladies would be, how did you discover blockchain? So how did you start working in it?
Sure, I mean, maybe I can get the ball rolling. And perhaps it's nice just to give a bit of an insight into what we work on at Minespider. I mean, as a consumer, you would probably love to know more about your products, right? How sustainable they are, how they're produced. And companies need the same information. So what we do at Minespider is help them to have a greater understanding of their supply chains. And essentially we create product passports that allow them to track where their products come from, where their raw materials come from, and the conditions under which they're produced. So alongside that, I also work at Lead Food Counts, which is our textile initiative. And about a year ago, I launched Token Woman, which features leading female blockchain speakers. So yeah, that's a bit of a background about what I do now, how I got into the space. It was 2017 in Israel at a wedding, actually, and I met a guy that was doing IPOs and he wanted to move to doing an ICO. Sorry, that's an initial public offering to initial coin offering, which is like the decentralized fundraising mechanism. And yeah, I started working on a side project for him, doing branding and marketing, and then eventually nothing came of it, but it already gave me this fascination with the whole blockchain space. So I would really recommend considering a side project. It's a great way to get into blockchain and it's very low risk and it helps you to understand what industry could be of interest and what role could be right for you.
Yes, thank you, Ella. So Maria, what is your answer to the question?
So I have been working in tech for almost 20 years. I used to work in Oracle in consulting. Then I was a project and program manager in a European, pan-European network called Giant that was providing ICT infrastructure. And so this was all great. So I have been in tech and always liked it. And then I was thinking about a couple of years ago, I was like, I would like some new challenges. And I've been always fascinated by AI and then recently also blockchain. So I really wanted to find some way to work with these new technologies because I think they will be, becoming really important in the future. And I just wanted to get on a train and get early on. So I'm there when this is all, happening. And so I was researching, I live in Cambridge, so I was looking around, see there's a lot of R&D happening in Cambridge, and I was really lucky to find a company in Cambridge that is actually focusing on doing both. So at Fetch.ai, we're developing our own blockchain and working also with the AI technology and really working on the convergence of the two. And I think that's a really fascinating space. And yes, it's still, technology in development, but I think it has a huge potential in the future. So that was really what I was looking for, and it's been really great.
Yes, thank you, Maria. Maybe Alexandra, you can go on.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Maria. Love your story. Happy to join this webinar, and I'm doing I think it's the 14th year in the tech space. And I think for me, it's a little bit more of a coincidence because I was lucky to be in Berlin. I think for the last 10 years, I live in Berlin. And as some of you might know, we have lots of startups. So this is kind of the ground zero for blockchain protocol startups, as also Cambridge, of course. I actually was doing a PhD at the Technical University of Berlin in informatics, in security part of informatics. And in those days, all my friends got into blockchain, and everybody was mining, and we got lots of core developers, core Bitcoin developers in Berlin, and then Ethereum somehow, you know, appeared, and then IOTA popped up. And so I think, you know, very good advice from the point of view how to get into tech. What is really, I think, new in the blockchain space, you know, we had lots of meetups. So I got into space, going to meetups, just knowing the infrastructure, how, you know, people interact with each other and what are the companies. And then I just got the opportunity because our university worked together with the research lab of Telekom, and they were opening up a blockchain group. And I thought that's super cool, you know, being in Berlin, working for a big company that invests into this tech. So that's kind of my story. And 2017, I started to lead the tech and product group, focusing on blockchain tech within Telekom, Deutsche Telekom.
Thank you very much. So our last lady, Rebecca, maybe she can go on.
Absolutely. I'm really happy to be part of the panel today. My journey to blockchain and also journey to tech is sort of non-traditional. I think maybe it's a sort of a good starting point for how to get into this space if you're coming from a non-traditional background. So I studied international economics and Spanish in my undergraduate degree, and then did a master's in international business. And then I thought, you know, I've always been interested in tech, but I hadn't yet been able to work in tech. And so actually I found through ISIC, which is an international student exchange organization that pretty much every university has, like a club at your university. I found an international internship at Fujitsu, which is a large manufacturer of computers. And that, back in those days, it was in marketing. And if you fast forward a bit, I'd been working in marketing and also business-to-business sales at Fujitsu and at Apple. And in 2014, had been reading a lot about Bitcoin and about blockchain and about whatever this new technology is that is coming and is somehow important, but don't really know how you get your hands on it exactly. And then Mt. Gox crashed, which was a Japanese Bitcoin exchange that secured or was carrying about 70% of the transaction volume of Bitcoin in the world at the time. There was a hack and a bunch of Bitcoins got stolen, and then I was like, okay, this is the moment. This thing must be undervalued. Now it's time to really get some practical experience. So that was the point at which I bought my first Bitcoins, and then just you know, not very much, just enough to start a few experiments, and then just really started getting my hands dirty in terms of looking at how wallets work and making transactions and really using the technology. And one thing led to another. I'm self-taught developer, and over time just got deeper and deeper into developing actual applications, first on Ethereum, and then sort of as a side project, like you said, great place to get started. Low risk, just start going to events, start talking to people, start coding in your spare time, and those efforts kind of pile on top of one another, and eventually it's time to make the switch and work full-time in a tech position or a tech role.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was very interesting. And you talked about your studies. So that would also lead to my next question about what is your background or your skill set. So maybe Ella, you can tell us what your background is or your skill set.
Sure. So I'm a businesswoman. I did basically a master's in international management and focused on marketing and branding as part of that. And about, 6 years ago, I started doing design as well. I'm still very much an amateur designer, but I think I really believe in being a polymath. I think it's nice to have 2 to 3 things that you specialize in, and that's kind of the combination of them or the edge of both of them where there's like a lapse of understanding. And if you can make blockchain one of those, I think it's a great opportunity at the moment. But we've also, in terms of skills in the industry, I think we've shifted from very development focused, because it was emerging tech and it still is, to having blockchain companies. And I mean, that means, as with any company, you need HR, you need marketing, you need finance, and obviously women are very capable of doing those roles.
So do you think it would be necessary to have a tech background to start a career in blockchain?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think if you have an appreciation of the technology, that's a great start, but I think it stops many women from even considering it as a career path if they don't have a tech background, and that's definitely not the case.
Yes, thank you so much. Maria, what would be your background or skill set? Maria, are you still there?
Over there, Maria. I think
you are muted, Maria.
I'm unmuted now. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I fully agree with Ella. I also have, and actually also, yeah, with Rebecca, I have international business background. I didn't have any tech background. Self-taught. I have done some website development in a spare time during maternity leave, and that's kind of how I became a bit more aware of the programming side. But it's really just to give you a sense of understanding of what the technology does. But you don't have to be a programmer. There are, as Ella said, there are huge opportunities in the on the financial side. We haven't mentioned legal, so understanding the legal application and implications of blockchain. That's really hugely important. There's the Liechtenstein Act that people need to understand, and that's really difficult. So I would really encourage women in the, especially in the financial and the legal background, to look into these technologies, because there's a huge potential, and there are so many opportunities, right? So you don't start with learning Ethereum or any anything about consensus. You don't need to do that. You need to understand the principles and then be able to apply them in the area that you're expert in, right? And so also coming back to the international business, there are huge opportunities. You need to develop collaborations, partnerships. You need to reach out to other companies and start working with them. And you don't need technical background for that at all. So I would very much encourage ladies, women to look in, get started, go to meetups. Now we have so many opportunities with these webinars. It's actually so much easier to connect with people, in my experience in this last month, with people from around the world. So, attend these and then reach out to the participants and get involved.
Thank you, Maria. I think that was very interesting, especially for students listening right now. And maybe Alexandra, you can tell us a little bit more about your background or skill set.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so I think I'm the first one from the speakers, but I do have tech background, and this is a very long path. I studied telecommunication engineering, and actually my first role was I was a video engineer, and I really was excited about content and streaming, and I was working for a TV company. And then when I moved to Germany, I actually continued my studies and did the PhD. PhD in Germany, it's roughly around 5 years. So, one has lots of time to get deeper into the topic. And that's where my focus of research was the security of devices. So how can we make devices secure? But also, while working in these things and understanding how the whole supply chain of music industry works, and interviewing even sometimes musicians, and they telling me stories about Spotify paying them. I think there was like a famous thing with Rihanna, which she got like $2 or something for a year. And so then I was, having questions like where this whole thing is going, right? And so how the rents are distributed. that's how I actually got into, okay, there is a blockchain, and I actually got into a very interesting research. I think it's Japanese, and 1918, they kind of created this whole concept of super distribution, where, you know, me as a content provider can sell my content directly to my users and all this stuff. And then I was like, oh, blockchain can actually enable this. And that's how I got from kind of, you know, device security to the blockchain space. And you know, I think I can speak for, also you know, add to the points that were mentioned before. I think I can surely say, I think it's overrated, having this tech background, because now, you know, for me having this, sometimes it disturbs, frankly speaking, because, you know, people that are too much in love with tech and, you know, the tech possibilities, all of a sudden we forget, like, you know, what is the actual use case? And by the way, blockchain only makes sense when it's shared between the companies. And that was Maria was saying, it's very important, the partnerships, right? And the term ecosystem became really important in the blockchain space. And, you know, there are people needed building these ecosystems. And that's, I think for sure, lots of, you know, female leaders will, you know, find their spot there. So I think it's really exciting.
Thank you very much. So I think we should maybe discuss the role of a woman in this industry a little bit more. So my next question would be a more general question. So what would be your biggest learning from frequently being the only woman in the room? I think maybe Ella, you could start with a question.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm lucky enough to work with a team of 9 wonderful men. We are constantly looking for more women. Unfortunately, we haven't found any recently. But in my team, I mean, I don't feel like the only woman in the room. I know that my opinions are valued, and it's a very trusting relationship that we have. However, like I think when I meet clients for the first time or investors, I'm very careful not to put myself in a stereotypical role. So for instance, I would never offer to get coffee. I would never offer to take notes. And I think, I mean, as your relationship develops, as your working relationship develops, it's totally fine. But I'm just careful at the start to not, basically make myself a stereotype.
Yeah, that's very good. Maybe Maria, your question to the answer would be your biggest learning from being the only woman in the room.
I would like to thank Ella for pointing those out, and really that's a huge thing to think about. So just act like an equal partner in the conversation. You know, don't think about yourself as a woman, think about yourself as an expert, and then act like that. So, you know, be out there, offer your opinions, question others, and just contribute to the conversation. Don't look at it, I don't look at it as men or women, you know, participating in it. And yes, I notice it, but you know, you just have to ignore it. Just go with it, and just be equal partner and act that way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Alexandra, what would be your opinion on this?
Yeah, thank you, ladies. I think these are great points. I also want to point out maybe being in the tech industry for so many years, I reflected a lot, and actually also I think thinking about the value that we bring to the table as women. And I think that's for sure what we shouldn't forget. And that's, I think, the struggle when by the end of the day, you know, we don't have any diversity, right? So let's talk about diversity. And I think like if you ever struggle within any team, think of it from the value perspective, because I think, you know, beautiful products and beautiful technologies, they come from the teams that are diverse. And it's really amazing. So my biggest learning, how differently sometimes we think and how different the opinions are, and how women might, you know, stress some completely different points than men would do on the table. And I think if you have, as Ella mentioned, if you have established this trustful relationship, this very nice atmosphere and team where everybody can put their voice on the table, I think that's really amazing. And, you know, I've seen myself how products are different when, you know, women are on the team, and it's really beautiful. And that's, I think, what should be the cornerstone of this, as Maria mentioned, of this partnership of the equal partner having completely different perspective, and that's where we can create a really nice system for the future.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And lastly, Rebecca, your opinion on this?
I'd like to add to that. I think, and maybe clarify. I see my role a little bit differently. I think that when I'm the only woman in the room, it's really an opportunity, because that means that I'm working in a context where my inputs are rare. And also, on top of that, I'm trans and I'm queer. And so those are additional inputs, additional perspectives that I can bring to the table that are unique in any room where I'm the only one of me, let's say. And most of the times that's the case. And particularly in a tech context, that's really, really important because the technology that we build is not neutral. And how we design it is really important. So technology often gets biases built into the tech itself. And for instance, having a woman on the design team for, let's just say an app, particularly maybe a health app. A lot of the, if you look at studies of how technology has been implemented, a lot of times it's been implemented without any eye towards anyone but straight white men, because it was straight white men that developed the technology. And having the opportunity to be in that room as the only one of me is really an unbelievable opportunity to influence the future. And I think when I'm in that room, and when it's sometimes difficult, because it will be if you're the only one, and you may be the only one, you can always, I think, sort of take solace in that even if you have some hard exchanges, or your voice isn't heard, it may be that you change things in the culture merely by your presence. So you always have something to contribute, even if you feel like you're the outsider.
Thank you very much for all those advices. I think everyone can really learn from this. Thank you very much. My next question, Ella, do you have a mentor or a role model, and how did this person impact your career?
Sure, but I mean, first of all, I just wanted to say that I think Rebecca made some great points there, and it's very brave, and you have to be a bit brave sometimes, especially when you're in these meetings and you are the only woman in the room. So great work there, Rebecca, and obviously all the other women. Do I have a mentor? I do now, and I wish I had had one earlier. I mean, unfortunately, I didn't earlier in my career, and now I realize how incredible it is to have that support and that encouragement. But I would think about it in a bit of a broader sense in terms of your colleagues. So when you go into a job interview, I would really recommend just not to think about just the salary or the position, but listen to your colleagues and see, are they listening to you? Do they value your ideas? Or do they cut you off halfway through the sentence? Because essentially you want to work in a job where everybody is a mentor, where everybody supports you and encourages you. And you have to be very careful about the environment that you work in the company that you go into. So I would recommend basically to have a bit of a broader idea of a mentor, but I do also think an individual one is a great idea.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. You do learn a lot from your colleagues. Maria, what would be your opinion on this?
Yeah, that was going to be my talking point, so Ella took it.
Sorry,
but I very much agree with that. I've always tried to learn from more experienced colleagues. And one suggestion or advice: don't ever be afraid to ask questions. Just ask questions. Nobody knows everything, and people may look, very self-confident, but that doesn't mean that everybody knows everything. It's just there's just so much to know. So. Don't be afraid to ask questions, ask more experienced colleagues, and do get mentors. I've actually been very lucky because I've had several throughout my career, and they change. And I think it's really important to have somebody that you feel comfortable talking to on an informal level, you know, in an informal way. So if you can, you know, reach out to others, we're very happy to help out. So I've actually started this initiative. I was supposed to have some international students coming here in May and June to do internships with us with Fetch, but because of the travel restrictions, they were not able to, or they're not going to be able to travel. And so I actually reached out to them and I said, look, you know, if you want, I can work with you. I can try to help you out. You can get started with blockchain, you know, think about it. I can be your mentor if you want. So, and they've actually liked that. So we started having regular calls and you know, that's a possibility now. And now it's even more easier because you can, you know, when you reach out to somebody, you can get connected. We don't travel, so we have so much more time to really help out others. So I've actually really enjoyed that. A similar experience actually with the Frankfurt School of Finance, which has been excellent in this initiative, trying to support women in blockchain and actually set up courses. And it's been really fun and really interesting also working with those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, Maria. And maybe even through our panel today, some people will find a mentor here in this group. So feel free to contact all the ladies. And yeah, Alexandra, do you have a mentor?
Yes, sure, lots of them. No, I think throughout my career, I think the learning was that we all have to have mentors because especially in a, you know, in a way in the blockchain space, everybody, you know, teaches each other because it's a new thing. So there is nobody who like, I know it all, you know. And so blockchain also connects different spaces. So it goes from, you know, math to crypto and then to legal things, to economics, game theory, and the list goes on and on. So everybody's needed on the table. And especially as Ella pointed out, especially, you know, people that connect different disciplines, because that's what really needed. And I truly believe this will be needed in the future. So I think it's important to diversify the mentors. And always learn from, you know, maybe older colleagues, or maybe somebody has their parents as mentors, and just, you know, take the time to really create this very, very close relationship where you can talk to the mentors, because, you know, we normally, I mean, we have lots of tasks on the table. So I talk to my mentors when I have problems. And so that's where you need this trustworthy relationship between two people to, you know, get to them and ask for advice. And very often, I'm doing now a very nice leadership program where, you know, they say the mentor is within you, because by the end of the day, it's very important, especially in, you know, new spaces as blockchain, to also somehow listen to yourself, to your intuition, to your inner guidance. So mentors are also very important, but also this, you know, voice that leads you, like what is your passion, what is the thing you want to do, and also is exactly like what are the colleagues you want to work with. So that's also, I think, important.
Thank you. Rebecca, so do you have any experiences with mentoring?
Yeah, I would just definitely add that mentoring can go in all directions. So I don't have one specific mentor. I tend to sort of view things more in the light that we all have the opportunity to mentor one another in various aspects as time goes on. So I don't exclusively look to colleagues that are more experienced, for instance. I also look maybe to a brand new hire who has something to teach me in an area that's complementary to my knowledge, because as it's been said already, but blockchain is a super wide area of knowledge. So we need people who are economists, we need people who understand cryptography, we need mathematicians, we need marketers, we need business people, and that's really what we need in order to make the industry advance as a whole, from sort of a nascent industry to a critical industry. And that means that all the people, if you need a mentor, all you've really got to do is look left and look right, because the people around you, if you've chosen a team that really does support you, those people are going to be your mentors, and you're going to be their mentor. And that's quasi I think that's really the relationship, is that there's an exchange, and sometimes I'm the mentor and sometimes I'm the mentee. So it's a give and take.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very important to keep in mind, that there's mentoring from both sides. Thank you, Rebecca. That was very nice. So now coming to our topic, we created this panel under the name "Why Blockchain Needs More Women." And I think, Rebecca, you can give us maybe 1 or 2 reasons why women are so needed in this industry.
For that, I would really just come back to my to the point that I made earlier. The technology is not neutral, and the people who are driving the decisions in how technology is built will shape our world, which means that those teams need to be diverse. Otherwise, we're going to end up with unforeseen results that don't represent the world that we want to live in the future. And I also want to add that I think that diversity really needs to extend also to racial and socioeconomic diversity, which is perhaps even more so than gender and sexuality, a difficult thing to manage, and really something that's super, super critical for designing a future that we all really want to live in.
Yeah. Maria, do you agree on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Rebecca touched all the points, so I'm not sure if there's anything to add, but yeah, it's not just the gender equality, it's including everybody, it's including the minorities. Only that way we can really design products, services, platforms that work for the whole society. You know, we're working here, let's say in Europe, but we're designing projects and products that are supposed to work in Africa, in Asia, and all these different parts of the world. So we must include those people, everybody in that conversation, in designing these products and developing these. And it goes for blockchain, it goes for AI. I mean, everybody actually knows that these are important things. You know, diversity and inclusiveness are hugely important, and people have realized that. I think more so in the AI space, where I'm also working in, but it's coming to blockchain as well, a bit more slowly, but I think we're making progress. So again, I would like to invite more ladies, more students come and join this development.
Yeah, absolutely. There's more diversity needed. Alexandra, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, sure. I also think if we talk about diversity, because lots of people talk about diversity, and this is really needed. I think it's important to remember it's not that easy to manage diversity, because that's exactly lots of disputes and lots of different opinions on the table. And I just wanted to cover the point from my perspective, why I think it's needed, and my biggest learning when I did realize that, all right, that's why diversity is so important. I think some of you that already dealt with creating of, I don't know, like startup product creation, new tech that you want to, push on the market. I think it goes without saying that it's not just, we got an idea and we just execute the plan and then we are successful at the end. It's lots of hassle, lots of troubles, lots of challenges. It's like, every day you have a new problem on the table. It's like, that's how the life looks like, and lots of, companies in blockchain. And especially when we get these challenges, it's super important. And sometimes the problem solving, it's not just to know another algorithm or to know how to code. It's very often a different perspective. Right? It's very often because people looking at the same thing from the same perspective, from the same angle, may probably won't solve it. And so that's why it's so important to abstract the problem and to invite different people on the table to listen to those different perspectives, because that's where all of a sudden the solution can come from. And that's basically, by the end of the day, the product consists of all these solutions to all the problems that we got on the road. And so I think from this perspective, for sure, that's how we can start diversifying and welcoming ladies towards the space, minorities, and that's super important.
Absolutely, thank you. Maybe Ella, you have another opinion on this or something to add?
I think the women have covered it beautifully, to be honest. I mean, I would just summarize it basically as we say, we can't allow these like inherent biases to enter into our tech. And I think, as Alexandra pointed out, we can also create even more interesting solutions with women on the team. So yeah, but I think we've explained enough about that one.
Yes, true. So I think we are slowly coming to an end. And now I think one of the most important questions today would be, or maybe for me, it's the most important question, would be for you ladies to give some advice for people looking to start a career in blockchain, because you created a career path in this industry, and I think you can give some great advice and also maybe name some hurdles you had to face. So yeah, maybe Ella, you can start with giving some good advice.
Sure. So I would just say take initiative. I have a lot of young men that reach out to me all the time and say, hey, can I write you a guest blog? Can I do an internship, an unpaid internship? And I never, ever have a woman that does this. So don't say somebody else's no for them, I mean, just write an email. Once you know what industry you want to work in, write an email to them. The worst thing they can do is not reply or say no, but it's worth a shot. And possibly the second one I would say is define your own model of success, because I think too many people chase a certain idea from perhaps their family or their college or so forth. But for instance, I love remote working because traveling gives me a lot of creative input. I think it helps me to do my job a lot better. So I knew that I had to look for a company with flexible work options. And it will narrow your search a bit when you're hunting for a job, but it will mean that you are a better fit for the job that you eventually end up in.
Yes, thank you, Ella. Absolutely true. That was very empowering. Thanks. Maybe Alexandra, you have another advice.
Yes, I think I don't know whether you've seen it. There is this famous meme, like nobody knows what they're doing. So I think it's somehow can be applied to blockchain. And so I would just say, don't think there is like a mastermind knowing all of it. And I think what is really interesting about blockchain is that myself, I see it. The protocols, the technology, the applications, the whole space develops so fast. If you really don't track for like the things that are happening for the last month or two, people are already somehow outdated. And so don't be afraid to exactly this point, right? Asking questions, and this whole information is out there on the internet. That's an amazing space. It's all like every startup or protocol, they publish lots of literature on these things, where basically everybody can find their own level of, understanding, whether it's like, from the product perspective or from the tech perspective. So just don't take it for it's not the case if somebody tells you, listen, I'm an expert or something. Everybody's learning, and so you get the beautiful chance, that's an opportunity right now to get into this and just be part of this whole space, which is, we are basically learning. It's try and error right now, and so there is nothing that we know how it will look in the future, and right now I think it's a beautiful window to get into space and to become part of the future.
Thank you very much. Maria, do you have any advice for someone wanting to enter this industry?
Great points, ladies. Alexandra and Ella, really fully agree with that. I would probably add, if your dreams don't scare you, they're probably not big enough. So don't think small, just think big. That's what this whole industry is trying to do, accomplish something, connect everybody. This, get rid of the intermediaries. How cool is that? So, you know, we're all trying to do something really cool here. You know, get on the train, do that with us. There's a lot of literature, as it has been said. I would say look at your academic institutions. I would say that's probably one of the best places to start. There are many free courses. There are some really good paid courses, you know, paid for courses, and I would say invest in your education. Take them. There are some from Oxford. There are great courses actually from the Frankfurt School of Finance. The Blockchain Center has done really good courses. I've taken a couple of them, so they're great. I'd recommend looking at that. But there's also, you know, stuff, reports, read stuff from OECD, World Economic Forum. They have published really great reports recently, and they continue to do that. As Alexandra said, you know, this is a really fast space. You know, things are outdated, you know, in 2-3 months. There's something new out here. So, you know, keep on top of things, keep learning. I think this is what we all have been doing. Just because you finished university doesn't mean that you stop learning. I think, you know, we're all learning our whole life. And if you keep up with that and you look for the new challenge, you know, you'll be on top of things. So don't be afraid, and, you know, just think big.
I absolutely agree. Rebecca, maybe you have another advice.
Yeah, I would add to the thoughts about education. You know, we traditionally have this view of education that you know, your education defines you, whether you've got a degree in economics, or you've got a degree in math, or you've got a degree in informatics. This defines your career path and defines what your opportunity set is. And I think that's been really, really changing over the last years in the economy, because of larger macroeconomic trends, but especially because the average person doesn't stay in a job a long, long time. There's not somebody that's going to be in a job for 20 years now. And most people change careers entirely, repeatedly. And so the model of education that we've had up until now is really outdated. And I think a lot of people sort of stand in their own way and say, okay, I don't have a degree in crypto economics, I can't do crypto economics. Or I don't have a degree in informatics, I can't do programming. Or I don't have a degree in design, I can't do design, or marketing. But usually it's moving from sort of coming from a traditional, let's say, female coursework in education. It's people limit themselves. So my advice would be, don't limit yourself. Remember that everybody's learning, and particularly in the blockchain space, really, really fast, really constantly learning. And that's probably the most key skill, is to start now and learn and start doing the work. And by doing the work and by learning, you will become what it is that you're searching for.
Yes, so thank you for all your advices. I think we can all learn from them. And to sum our panel up, I would say people don't have to be afraid anymore to enter the blockchain industry. And I really hope that we all stay connected somehow. And looking in our WhatsApp group, I found some questions. So to everyone listening right now, please feel free to ask any questions to our speakers in the group. And the first question I found is, what positive outcomes can women trying to separate themselves as a group rather than taking part in all the ongoing activities as a regular member lead to? Probably to Maria.
Sorry, can you please repeat that? So what
positive outcomes can women trying to separate themselves as a group rather than taking part in all the ongoing activities as a regular member lead to?
I think women can form groups. There are some support groups that I know of here in London. There's the Bigger Pie group, and those ladies are really, you know, working together and trying to achieve something and help each other network. There are groups in the States that I have heard of. There is actually women in blockchain in Poland. there are these groups and people are forming networks like that around Europe. So I think it's great. And if you can find your support group that way, that's fantastic, you know. Whichever way works for you. There's no one good way to do it for everybody. Everybody has to find what works for them. So, and if there is none, if there's no network in your area, create one. Don't be afraid, just start one, get some other people and just start talking about things. That's all it takes.
Yes, okay, thank you, Maria. Another question, I think everyone should be able to answer this, is do any of the speakers experience any lack of trust from co-workers' side, any gender, when sharing their experience and opinion? So maybe also, how did you deal with this situation? Maybe Ella, you can start. Do you have any experiences?
I mean, as I said before, I'm quite fortunate with my co-workers, but in previous companies, I mean, I read this great article that said being a woman in business is like 90% being a mum and 10% being assertive. And I think you do have to somehow find this balance between when to speak up and defend yourself and when to just let it slide. And I think for me, I struggled a lot with criticism, actually, and it helped a lot to kind of, for me, separate it into maybe two types of criticism. So you have constructive feedback and that you can really put to use. And then you have a lot of people that are just having a bad day and will come to you and give you feedback that you can basically just ignore. So I think, yeah, you just have to be smart with yourself and kind to yourself in these scenarios and stand up for yourself when you do feel it's necessary.
Thank you, Ella. Maybe Alexandra or Rebecca, do you have any bad experience, so to say, with coworkers?
I'll probably jump in. Yes, it was super hard for me just to put it on the table. And so the first years in my career, you know, my voice not being heard, I'm just like sometimes would, you know, talk and everybody would just, you know, ignore and roll with their things. And so it took me, you know, lots of time to, I think, find my strategy. I think that's the most important. Find your way, how to be heard, how to place your opinions. There are lots of books that I read on negotiations, how to, you know, make it work. And so I'm not sure whether it's only for women. Maybe, you know, male colleagues in the beginning of their path also struggle with the same thing because it's just the age thing. But I think it's equal for everybody, just to find the way how you, whether it's, I don't know, making your voice loud or standing up or dressing up or, I don't know, being soft, gentle, whatever works for you. So yeah, it was not easy. So that's at least my experience.
Yes. Okay, so I think our time is up. And I would just like to thank all of our speakers and listeners today. And I really hope we stay connected. And I hope we could clarify some misunderstandings about the blockchain industry. And yeah, I really hope that our speakers could support you to start a career in blockchain. And yes, thank you everyone for being a part of this today.
Thank you, Jennica. Great job of moderating there.
Well done, Jennica. Excellent. Thank you, ladies. It was great to be here today.
Thank you, everybody.
Take a look at the chat. There's more questions in the chat, so all the speakers maybe take a look at it and just respond there. It's faster.
Perfect.
Yes, of course.
Right,
Yeah, let's just stay connected within the WhatsApp group. So I'm happy to, you know, continue supporting you ladies out there, and I'm sure the other panelists as well. And let's just stay connected and stay in touch.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.